The Galactic Codex hummed with quiet certainty in the observation chamber, its crystalline matrix processing probabilities with the cold precision that had guided 17 civilizations through the stars. Observer Velnach stood before it, his 4 optical sensors fixed on the readout that defied all logical parameters. "Impossible," he whispered in the clicking language of his people. The human vessel, Defiant they called it, how absurdly fitting, had just launched toward the void rift. Every calculation, every simulation run through the Codex's quantum processors arrived at the same conclusion: total annihilation. The rift was a tear in spacetime itself, consuming matter and energy with insatiable hunger. 3 expeditions had been lost to its depths. The bravest warriors of the Krillian Empire, the most advanced probes of the synthetic collective, all devoured without trace. And now, humanity's response to the crisis was to send 6 of their own directly into oblivion. "Codex," Velnach commanded, "recalculate survival probability for the human mission." The ancient machine's lights pulsed in algorithmic thought. Then, with absolute certainty, 0.0001%, a statistical impossibility. Functionally 0. Velnach activated the communication channel to the Defiant. Protocol demanded he warn them one final time, though they had ignored every previous appeal to logic. "Human vessel, this is Galactic Observer Velnach. The Codex has completed its final analysis. Your chance of survival is 0.00001%. There is no rational justification for this mission. Please reconsider." Static crackled for a moment. Then Captain Oliver Akira's voice emerged, steady and impossibly calm. "Received, Observer. We've seen the math." "Then you understand." Velnach pressed, his translator struggling to convey his species' version of desperation. "This is not bravery. This is mathematical certainty of death. The Codex does not make errors." A pause. Then something that might have been a laugh. That peculiar human sound that indicated either amusement or hysteria. Velnach had never been certain which. "Observer, we call that hope." "Hope?" Velnach's sensors dimmed in confusion. "Hope is not a tactical advantage. Hope does not alter quantum probabilities. Hope is why we're still here," Chen interrupted. The background noise suggested her crew was preparing for rift entry. "Your Codex is remarkable, Observer, but it's never had to calculate for humanity before. We've built civilizations on worse odds than this." Velnach accessed the human database, something he'd avoided until now. The Codex had deemed humanity too young, too reckless, their data too contaminated by emotion to be useful. But now, as the Defiant approached the rift's event horizon, he needed to understand. What he found defied categorization. Humans had crossed frozen wastelands on foot with no guarantee of land beyond. They had launched themselves into space, on controlled explosions, trusting mathematics written by hand. They had dove to the crushing depths of their oceans in metal spheres, into the fire of their planet's volcanoes, into storms that should have scattered them like dust. The data showed something the Codex had never quantified. Humans did not calculate odds to determine possibility. They calculated odds to determine cost, then decided if they were willing to pay it. "Captain Chen," Velnach said slowly, "the Codex indicates that even if you survive entry, the rift's interior will tear your vessel apart at the molecular level. Your shields will fail in 2.3 seconds. Your hull will breach in 4.7 seconds. You will have perhaps 6 seconds of consciousness before—" 6 seconds, Chen's voice cut through, suddenly sharp. "Plenty of time to deploy the resonance charges. Observer, those colonies on the other side of the rift, the ones cut off for 3 months, they have children there. Scientists, farmers, people with families. The rift is expanding. In 2 weeks, it'll consume their entire sector." "Yes," Velnach acknowledged. "The Codex predicts complete sector loss. Evacuation is impossible at this distance. It is regrettable, but inevitable." "No," Chen said simply. "It's not inevitable, it's just really, really hard. There's a difference." The Defiant touched the rift's edge. Velnach's instrument screamed warnings. The Codex's probability display flickered, struggling to process what it was witnessing. The human ship didn't die. It should have. Every law of physics demanded it. But the Defiant had angled its approach at precisely 47. 3 degrees, using the rift's own torsion to create a slipstream. A technique so insane, so impossibly risky, that no civilization had ever attempted it. Why would they? The Codex would have rated it as effectively impossible. But humans, Velnach realized with growing wonder, didn't ask the Codex for permission. The ship tumbled through impossible geometries, its hull screaming. On Velnach's display, he watched Chen and her crew working with frantic precision. No panic, no hesitation. Just 5 humans and 1 ship against the howling void. 4 seconds in, shields failed. The Codex's prediction, correct. 5 seconds in, hull breaches began. The Codex's prediction, correct. 6 seconds in, the resonance charges deployed. 12 quantum devices that theoretically could destabilize a rift's formation matrix. Theoretical because they'd never been tested at this scale. Testing would require someone to enter a rift, and what rational being would do that? The charges detonated. For a moment, the rift convulsed. Space-time twisted in ways that made the Codex's processors freeze. Then impossibly magnificently the tier began to close. Not completely, not permanently, but enough. Enough for the colonies to evacuate. Enough for science teams to arrive. Enough for hope to become reality. The Defiant emerged on the far side of the rift 17 minutes later, trailing plasma and debris, held together by emergency fields and what Velnach could only describe as sheer stubbornness. All 6 crew members alive. Against 0.0001% odds. Velnach stared at his instruments, at the Codex, at the impossible data scrolling past his sensors. Codex, he said quietly. Update human tactical assessment protocols. Note, species does not recognize mathematical impossibility as a valid constraint. Further note, this appears to be an advantage. The Codex hummed, processing. Then for the first time in its 7,000-year existence, it added a new parameter to its probability matrices. Human hope factor, unable to quantify in the observation chamber. Velnach allowed himself what his species used as a smile. The galaxy had spent eons listening to the Codex's perfect calculations, its flawless predictions, its cold certainties. How refreshing to finally meet a species that looked at certain death and saw a challenge instead. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm one final time before the Defiant jumped to the evacuation coordinates. Observer, tell your Codex we appreciate the math. But next time you calculate the impossible, maybe add a new variable. What variable? Velnach asked, though he suspected he already knew. Humanity. The transmission ended. Velnach looked at the retreating ship, at the closing rift, at the saved colonies that would have been ash and memory. The Codex had calculated 0.0001% chance of return. The humans had called that hope. And somehow, impossibly, hope had been enough.